Hello there, and welcome to the Time Machine with Trish and Mike. I'm Mike.
And I am Trish.
And we're glad you're back with us. Once again, you were not blown away by our hurricane conversation at the end of last week's show, and you have returned for another episode.
Dun, dun, dun. How was your week been, Mike?
Good. I mean, not as good as last week because I was at the beach.
Right.
So, but it was fine.
We're entering spooky season. It's going to be October soon.
Yes. And I've had quite a few pumpkin spice lattes at this point. So,
See, and I'm not a pumpkin spice latte person, but I have enjoyed the other seasonal flavors like the apple crisp macchiato.
Well,
that was a good one.
This is the final episode of the Time Machine with Trish and Mike.
I'm sorry. I tried one. It just wasn't maybe I have to give it a second try. I only tried one in my entire life.
Maybe. And I need to try the caramel apple thing because I have heard or the apple crisp or whatever.
The apple crisp macchiato.
Yes, I've heard that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So.
Except my barista was going to give me an iced one. And I was like, whoa. It is a beautiful fall day in Edmonton. I would like a warm, not iced. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, my thing is I like to start drinking the pumpkin spice ones in September because usually like the beginning of November, they start to roll out the Christmas themed drinks like the eggnog latte, the gingerbread. And I like all of those. And since there's so many of them, it's like you can only have a couple of each kind of thing. So like I try to get all my pumpkin stuff out of the way in September and October so I can enjoy more of the other ones later in the year.
Well, and your Thanksgiving is so much later than ours here in Canada. So
yes,
we can enjoy our pumpkin closer. And then as soon as Thanksgiving's done in October, we're like into Christmas season. So
yeah. No, I get you.
Nice.
But other than that, yeah, I'm good. How was your week?
Yeah, it was good. I mean,
how's your shoulder? Have you recovered yet?
So I continue to take my arthritis Advil and my Voltaren cream to help. But yeah.
Is Ben Gay still a thing?
I don't know if I've seen Ben Gay in a really long time.
Okay, well, Icy Hot is. So maybe we need to get you some Icy Hot.
Icy Hot. I got to get it like a patch.
Yeah.
Just like wrap my whole body in one.
So Icy Hot, if you're listening, we're open to a sponsorship agreement. Send us an email at the Time Machine with Trish and Mike at gmail.com. Put in the subject line, advertising.
Yeah, I will give an advert at the beginning of the episode, letting you know the indication of my shoulder, how I'm doing using this product.
This episode is brought to you by Trish's Shoulder
and Icy Hot. But just keep on trucking.
Yeah, and that's what we'll do as we move on to the show. Speaking of sponsors, this
is one I would definitely want to sponsor us.
Yes, I'm open to all sponsorship negotiations, whether you're a company that we have mentioned or are going to mention, or just anybody in general that would like to sponsor our show. Send us an email. But anyway, so let me ask you, Trish. When I say Nintendo, what immediately comes to your mind?
What immediately comes to mind is the NES Classic and gaming on Saturday mornings in my brother's bedroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
So gaming and probably, would I be fair to assume Mario, probably? Oh,
yes. Yeah. Mario Brothers 3.
So based on all this, when do you think the Nintendo company was founded?
I mean, I know we've talked about Mario games before on the show. Let's see. I know it was in the 80s. I'm going to go just before, because maybe it was incorporated before. I'm going to say 1978.
Well, the Nintendo company was actually founded in 89.
1989?
1889.
Oh no. So again, math is not my strong suit.
The company was founded on September 23rd, 1889.
Wow.
Originally, the company was known as Nintendo Koppai. It was founded by Fusariro Yamauchi. I'm going to try that again.
That was very good.
Yamauchi. Because I keep wanting to say Yamaguchi,
Right.
but there's no
Like-
G in there, like Christy
Mhm.
Yamaguchi, the skater. And
My brain goes to Tamaguchi.
Yamaguchi-san. Yes. And they originally produced handmade Hanafuda cards. So Hanafuda cards are translates into flower cards, and they're a Japanese style of playing card, kind of like we would, have a deck of, playing cards.
Yeah.
And they'd have flowers or animals or something. And these cards were usually used to play a variety of games like Koi Koi and Haichi Haichi and stuff. So different Japanese.
So still a gaming company, but
Yes.
just card games.
Correct. And in fact, in 1959, Nintendo actually had a contract with Walt Disney to incorporate Mickey Mouse and other characters into the cards. By 1961, the company had sold more than 1.5 million card packs.
Wow. That's a lot of cards going around.
It is. And so in the 60s, Yamauchi's, at this point, his grandson was running Nintendo, and they began to explore other business ventures, such as packages of instant rice, a taxi service, a chain of love hotels.
Love hotels. Oh my.
Yes. Think about that when you talk about Mario saving a princess in another castle. Did you rent the castle by the hour?
Oh, it's now ruined.
As you can imagine, since you don't know of Nintendo love hotels anymore, some of these ventures were not very successful. Although Yamauchi's grandson would ultimately be responsible for transforming Nintendo into the multi-billion-dollar video gaming company that we know today.
Yeah, so he had to hit on the right product.
Yes. So in the late 60s, they began distributing classic games like chess and Mahjong and other, like regular board game type things. And in the 70s, they started getting into electronic toys. They came up with a light gun that you would use, similar to the Duck Hunt game that a lot of us grew up with. They had a gun similar to that, what obviously ultimately led to Duck Hunt. And in 1981, Donkey Kong was a video game, and that was one of the first video games that allowed a character to jump. That character, of course, was originally known as Jumpman, would go on to become Mario, and the rest is history. Did you know where Mario got his name from?
Yeah, because that's not like, how did an Italian plumber come from a Japanese company?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mario Segal was the landlord of Nintendo's offices in Tukwila, Washington.
Oh, so they named it in honor of him?
Yes.
Oh, that's kind of sweet.
I mean, I don't think they knew at the time what they were on to, but still, it's kind of a pretty cool honor.
It's a nice little nod. He obviously was a good landlord. I mean, you're not going to name your character after kind of a
if he was a jerk, yeah. I mean,
then you name maybe Donkey Kong after him, a villain.
Yeah, right. How many Nintendos, regular old school NESs, do you think were sold?
Oh, goodness. I mean, I know it was super popular, so it has to be like hundreds of thousands. Like originally? Well, like, how many people are in the world? And if every family had a Nintendo, I mean, almost.
Let me put it to you this way. The original Nintendo is the 7th most successful Nintendo system.
The original is the 7th?
Yes.
Wow.
Which makes sense because as the popularity has grown.
Yeah. And the population of the world. And
so 61.9 million NES units have been sold.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Do you know what the actual highest selling video game system of all time is?
Oh, we've discussed this, and I remember being shocked that it was this system. So out of all the Nintendo systems, which one is the most?
Well,
has sold the most?
You can give me two answers. You can give me the most Nintendo systems or the most systems overall, and that is a bit of a hint that the number one system is not a Nintendo system.
Oh, the system overall.
Yes.
Like out of any gaming company?
Yes.
Oh, I'm going to think that the PlayStation sold more than Nintendo.
Yes. Which one though?
Yeah. Oh, PlayStation 2.
Go with it. I can see you. I'm like, you're going to get it. PlayStation 2, over 155 million units. The Nintendo DS family of systems, very, very close, 154 million. Game Boy and Game Boy Color have done 118 million, followed by PlayStation.
Well, that makes sense because the price is cheaper and pocket-sized.
Exactly. The PS4 is next and followed by the original PlayStation.
Wow.
The Wii has sold just over 101 million. The Nintendo Switch, just over 89 million. I have a Switch. I think you do as well, don't you?
Nope.
Oh.
Not yet.
I got one
I keep teasing my daughter about it's like, oh, too bad we don't have one. She doesn't know that we have one for October. It's coming very soon.
Oh, well, hopefully she doesn't listen to the podcast and get that spoiled. I got one like right at the beginning of the lockdown quarantines last year.
I mean, I tried and then they just sold out here in Edmonton. And then it was just like, oh, like what? I'm still such an N64 girl, but Nick ended up pre-ordering the newest version that's coming out. So he got a system for himself and for me. And so now we'll be able to game over online or whatever some of the games.
So my friends Joey and Robin, they had just gotten one sometime, I think in early 2020. And we were on a Zoom one night with them and my friends Cody and Jocelyn. And I think I've told this story actually now that I think about when we did the Mario Day thing. And they were like, oh yeah, we got Switches. And so Cody and I both went on like Target or Best Buy or something. And they had some in stock. And so we're clicking like submit before they were sold out.
All gone.
So we got Switches. So yeah.
I'm actually surprised there was only 80 million, like considering the pandemic and people being on lockdown, that they didn't buy more of the units. Well,
and I think the number's still ongoing because they're getting ready to release a new version. So that's going to boost the numbers. And if you recall, when it happened last year, when everything started getting, quarantines and stuff, production went down on a lot of things because they couldn't manufacture them. That's why still to this day, the Xbox X and the PlayStation 5s are still in very high demand because they just can't quite produce them as many as they need to keep up with the
and I'm assuming COVID with workers and factories and temporary shutdowns. And I forget about that, that part of COVID.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Nintendo, 1889.
Crazy. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Know what else was a long time ago, but not nearly that long ago?
I was just going to say
that also involves technology.
I was going to say, I think that's the oldest thing on our show today, but we'll roll with it. Go for it.
Yes, yours is definitely the oldest example of our history segment. But Mike, Canada had an election on the 20th of September. As of the recording of this episode, we're not aware of who won the election, but it did make me think of this story for our show when I saw this pop up.
Spoiler, that means we've recorded this prior to September 20th.
I'm very curious to see who will find out. This is the whole shtick of the time machine, going back and forth in history.
Exactly.
Now, for the first time in U.S. history,
next week we'll tell you who won the election from last week.
That's right. Exactly.
So stay tuned, people. Don't watch the news. Just listen to us.
Just listen to us, like blindly give you information way after the fact.
How did Wayne Gretzky win? He wasn't even on the ballot.
Weirder things have happened.
I mean, he could probably win, right? I mean, he's like the most famous Canadian.
Well, Kate, no, this is a side note. I was listening to the radio the other day.
That's your problem.
What's interesting is they were talking about what is your town most famous for, right? And so I'm messaging in about Antigonish is very famous for two things: the Wheel Pizza, it's a restaurant. It's awesome, yummy pizza, and the X ring that comes from St. FX University. It was on Jeopardy as the third most recognizable ring in the world. So that's what our town is. Someone else called in, and it was from, I believe it was Markham, Ontario. And they were saying that their town is famous for two things. One, they said Alexander Graham Bell issued the patent for the telephone in their town.
Which we've talked about.
Even though he did live on Cape Breton Island. But anyway, I'm totally claiming that for Nova Scotia. And it's the home of Wayne Gretzky's dad. And so they're like, imagine like you are the most famous entity from your town. Like you have beaten out the telephone. So.
And you're not even the famous one.
You're not even the famous Gretzky.
Right.
But Anyway, little tangent there.
Did you, when you went back home over the summer, did you get to go there to the Wheel Pizza?
To the Wheel? Oh, yeah. We had like Wheel Pizza like 3 or 4 times while we were home.
Now
and my daughters were like, "Can we have pizza, Nana?" And she's like, "Yes," because she can't say no to my kids. I love you, Mom.
Glad you had a great birthday. Now I want pizza. We talked about this last week, Trish. We can't record shows when we're hungry.
Yeah, that's true. It is really good. What is interesting is the Wheel Pizza does deliver. Oh no, they used to do it. So way back when I was little, they would do it all over the world. Like you could order it and they would fly it to you. I don't know how you'd cook it, but now they only do it within Canada. Because I was actually going to try and send like you and Nick some pizza. They're like, no, it's only in Canada now. It's not North America anymore. I was like, dang.
Darn. Oh, well. But
so just cross the border.
Yeah, you do want to have a good meal. As if we're going to have debate about pizza, we need to order some pizza. But we can get back because we do have something else to debate. Well, we're not going to debate, but you're going to tell us.
We're not going to debate. We're going to tell you about it. But September 26, 1960, a debate between major party presidential candidates is shown on television for the very first time. So, of course, this is going to be presidential hopefuls, John F. Kennedy, who is or was a Democratic senator from Massachusetts, and Richard M. Nixon, who was the vice president of the United States at the time. And they're going to meet in Chicago to discuss U.S. domestic matters. So it's really interesting. So it's the first time this debate is on television, obviously, so that you can see these individuals as they're debating these issues. So people who listened to the debate on the radio claimed that Nixon had won. People who watched the debate overall claimed Kennedy had won. So the visual component of this debate became extremely important. And what a go ahead.
No, I was going to say that, and that lies the big difference because prior to them, all the debates had been on radio. And if you don't have that visual element, it's like, as we sit here and record this show, we can see each other. You find wonderful people listening to us. You're simply listening to us. So I could be like, doing something stupid with my hands and making silly faces, trying to be professional. Trish would be the only one that knows I'm an idiot.
That's right. So as soon as you add that visual component, which we've talked about for YouTube,
eventually,
then it's a whole different kettle of fish, right?
Yes.
What a time for a debate, though, in your history, right? 1960 is a crazy time in U.S. history. You guys are engaged in the Cold War with the Soviet Union, which had just taken the lead with the space race by launching Sputnik. You have the rise of Fidel Castro with the revolutionary regime in Cuba. It's heightening fears of communism in the Western world. On the domestic front, you have the struggle for civil rights and desegregation. There's crucial questions about state of democracy. And so at a time when you needed a really strong leadership, right, you have vastly different candidates, right? John F. Kennedy is going to be this young, dynamic Massachusetts senator from a powerful New England family. He's running to be the first Catholic president. And you have Richard Nixon, who's a seasoned lawmaker, currently serving as vice president, right? Little more than a single unremarkable term in the U.S. Senate under his belt, 43-year-old Kennedy is lacking Nixon's extensive foreign policy experience. And like I said, you have that added component of the religious kind of issue that I don't know necessarily if that's such a big thing anymore, but in the 60s, it was a really big deal.
Yeah. In the 60s, it would have been a bigger deal than it would be now. Having a Catholic president would not, I don't think, be as much of an issue now as it was to some back then. I've kind of generally always been of the belief that, while sure, having your beliefs are important, I'm primarily concerned with how do I think you can effectively lead the country.
Yeah, exactly.
That to me is the number one requirement for that job, in my opinion. It's just like if I'm hiring somebody to work for a company, well, I don't care what you do on weekends. I don't can you do the job that you're asked to do?
Exactly. Right. Way back then, though, much bigger deal.
Yes.
Nixon, by contrast, had spent already 8 years as the country's second in command after, a really successful career in Congress. Right. So he's exposed Alger Hiss's alleged espionage attempt at the age of 39. He's dealt with domestic issues. He became one of global communism's most outspoken critics. So he has quite an extensive resume compared to Kennedy. Now, this is where already in August, so a month before the debate, this is where the idea of appearance starts to become important. So Nixon takes a major hit in August when a reporter asked President Eisenhower to name some of his vice president's contributions. And he's exhausted and irritated after a long press conference. And he replied, "If you give me a week, I might think of one, but I don't remember." While the remark was meant to be about a reflection of his own presidency, it suddenly becomes a black mark on Nixon's attempt at presidency, right? Mm-hmm. And the Democrats have this famous line that says, "President Eisenhower could not remember, but the voters will remember." So we're already starting to get negative kind of coverage on Nixon. Then Nixon bashes his knee on a car door while campaigning in North Carolina. He developed an infection that landed him in the hospital for 2 weeks. And so he emerges looking really frail and shallow and pale, and he's 20 pounds underweight because of this infection. Now, if you're on radio, no one's going to know.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. But you're seeing it on television. Meanwhile, Kennedy's golden complexion is making him look the picture of health next to Nixon on camera. Now, what's interesting, I didn't realize this, is that historians have speculated that Kennedy's characteristic tan was actually a symptom of Addison's disease, which is an endocrine disorder that plagued him for most of his life. And while it's an uncommon disorder, it affects the body's ability to produce certain hormones, particularly cortisol. I did not realize this.
That's interesting. I mean, the one good thing about it is you can have a year-round tan and you don't have to worry about getting sunburned.
I thought it was just because he was outside a lot.
Right, yeah.
But no, apparently that coloring of his skin was maybe from Addison's disease.
Interesting.
Now, on the evening when they show up, the two candidates arrive at CBS broadcast facilities in downtown Chicago. Nixon's streak of bad luck continues. While stepping out of the car, you think he would have learned, he bangs his bad knee and exasperates his earlier injury. So now he's in pain. He can't walk properly. He has to kind of force himself to continue. The vice president had also recently suffered a bout of the flu, and he was actually still running a low-grade fever. So he's feeling like garbage, and he's got a fever. So he's all like sweaty and, clammy, probably how you feel when you have a flu. Kennedy, meanwhile, had spent, time holed up on the campaign trail. And he is, fielding practice with his aides in the hotel room and resting up for the debate. So he's looking great, right?
Yeah.
Now that they have a great debate, and in all accounts, people said it was very well done. They emphasized national security, the threat of communism, the need to strengthen the U.S. military, and they actually agree in a lot of things. Nixon actually says, and can you imagine today with presidential debates or prime ministerial debates, he looks at the camera and he says, "I subscribe completely to the spirit that Senator Kennedy has expressed tonight." Like in total agreement of what Kennedy has said.
You could argue that's the moment he loses the election.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking when I was reading it.
But after seeing, I will refrain from using adjectives to describe the debates we saw in 2020. That sort of support for one another is quite welcome.
Yeah.
Because
I would love to return to that.
That's one thing we had certainly lost in the 2020 debates was a sense of decorum. Particularly, that first one it was
bad.
That was I kind of want to cringe watch it again because it was so bad. But yeah,
we can make it. We could do a 1 year later event.
There you go.
Right now,
it's the anniversary of that is somewhere around this time. Continue with your thing as I do the research.
Up. You're going to looking? Okay,
I'm going to look. Yep.
So Kennedy is nailing the debates, though. Remember, cameras, first time. If you're on the radio, it doesn't matter where you look. Like you said, like you're looking at your phone doing research right now. I'm looking at my computer. It doesn't matter where our sight line is. So Kennedy is staring directly into the camera. He's answering questions. It's like he's talking directly to the people watching, right? Which makes sense. Nixon, on the other hand, is used to the radio. So he's looking off to the side, addressing the reporters that are writing things down and recording it. So he's coming across this shifting his gaze and avoiding eye contact with the people, right? And he already had this terrible nickname, right? They called him Tricky Dick.
Yeah.
That's a terrible, terrible nickname. So he's looking more shady and shifty by looking away from the camera, but he's addressing people in the room.
And we've all been on Zoom calls and stuff where that happens. It's like, because if you're looking at your screen, even as we record the show and we can see each other, sometimes we're looking down on our screen at our notes, and it appears that we're not really looking at one another because, or you wind up looking at the person on the screen and not up where the camera is and thing. The side note, by the way, it's actually this coming Wednesday, September 29th, will be the 1 year anniversary of the.
So guys, we're all going to cringe watch the debate again. Mike and I should set up some drinking rules. Yeah. Those of you that abstain from drinking, you can still participate, but with chocolate milk or juice or whatever.
But we're not responsible if you get diabetes 30 minutes into the
That's
debate.
Right. Exactly.
We're also not responsible if you get hungover 15 minutes into the debate. But
truth, we accept no responsibility, no messaging us on that. On TV, we've talked about appearance.
Yep.
Both men were given. They said, hey, here we have an expert makeup artist to help you. And both declined, right? Although Kennedy's already looking tanned and, he's looking rested and healthier, then more energetic than Nixon, who has a flu and a fever. And he also had kind of a 5 o'clock shadow happening, which is interesting. Apparently, he just had really fast growing facial hair. During an interview with Walter Cronkite two weeks before the debate, the vice president had confided in him and said, I can shave within 30 seconds before I go on television, I'll have a beard. It just grew that fast. So, oh God, at his aide's urging, Nixon puts a coat of something called lazy shave on his face, which is a drugstore pancake makeup that was used to mask his 5 o'clock shadow. Now, he has the fever. He's under hot lights. He starts to sweat.
Oh, yeah.
The powder starts to come off of his face, melting, and it he's looking like this wreck. He's also wearing a light gray suit, which was the same color as the backdrop behind him. So he's like a floating sweaty head on set with ashen skin tone, right?
We've talked about 2020 debates. This is so reminding me of the Rudy Giuliani press conference where he's sweating the hair dye.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. So optics matter, my friends. Oh my goodness. So he's looking like a wreck. He's staring off to the side. He's done. He's toast.
Yeah.
Right. Reacting to the vice president's on-air appearance, Chicago Mayor Richard J. Daley is reported as saying, my God, they've embalmed him before he even died. That's not a soundbite you want associated with your presidential debate.
No.
Right. So he does get healthier and he cleans up his act for the next 3 debates, but the damage has been done, right? Like you already said with the soundbite, he's lost it.
Yep.
And besides, Kennedy had a bonus secret weapon. Can you guess what it was?
Depends who we're asking. Are we asking Marilyn Monroe what the secret weapon was?
Ooh, no.
Okay.
We're not asking her, but it was his very beautiful and charismatic wife who charmed the nation and the world. And so that was his secret. People just love this golden couple, right?
Yeah.
And Kennedy's going to be elected your president November 8th, 1961. Or 60. Sorry, not 61.
Yeah.
Yeah. But oh my God, poor Nixon. I mean, and then there was a whole bunch of other stuff that Nixon did that wasn't super helpful to his career. But hey, this debate definitely did not help.
No, it did not. I was actually at a baseball game when President Nixon died.
Oh, were you?
Yep. I mean, they didn't announce it in the middle of the game or whatever. We just met. We were in Atlanta on vacation. And it was the first time I went to see the Braves play live. I don't remember. I think it might have actually been the Friday. I don't know off the top of my head. I think might have been the Friday night. So it might have been the first game we went to. And we came back to the hotel and it was on the TV that he had done.
April 22nd, 94.
Yep. Which I think was Friday. Yeah. Braves lost that night. That sucked. Then we went the next night and they lost that night too. But hey, at least
you're still there. You were there for live game. That's exciting.
I've actually got to see them win though before, so that's nice.
Now, and Have you ever been to, like, I don't know about presidential debates and how you get invited? I mean, I've only ever been to a leadership debate for a party in Canada.
I've never been. They're very limited who they let in to the debates. I have, though, been in the presence of a president once. I was in Atlanta again a few years ago for a Garth Brooks concert, and he brought President Carter out to give him some award for. They've done a lot of, Garth and his wife Trish Yearwood have done a lot of work with the Carters, with Habitat for Humanity and stuff. So they brought him out to give him some award. So that was pretty cool. Like you're there, in the presence of because there's still to this day, I mean, there's only 46 people.
Yeah, like we have way more leaders than you guys.
Right. I mean, there are 46 people who have been presidents, and you currently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them that are alive.
Yeah,
past presidents. Yeah, because you got Carter, Bush, Clinton, Obama, Trump, and Biden. So we have 6 people on the planet that have or are currently a president. It's kind of a cool thing.
Oh, you guys you have had more presidents. I don't know why. I guess because our prime ministers have had longer terms.
Maybe that's why.
Right, because we can go longer than the 8 years. There's no set term limit for our
right. And we didn't up until Roosevelt in the 40s.
Oh, I didn't know that. And then Roosevelt put in the terms?
The Congress did.
Congress?
Because he probably would, his corpse would probably still be reelected right now.
Because we've only had 23 persons have served as prime minister, but they've served for like long chunks of time.
You're also a younger country than us too.
That's true. Yeah. 1867 for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I've met prime minister, like former prime minister, Stephen Harper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. My mom has met Trudeau. I think she's met Trudeau. I know she for sure has met Trudeau's mom because
that's all that matters.
Yeah. My brother was working overseas, obviously. And she's like, my son works for your son because they were at a dinner together. I'm like, Mom, I don't think Margaret Trudeau is so super concerned about like who her son's working with.
I've met Tim McGraw's mother before. Huh? We were in line waiting to get in the concert, and she just came out one night just to say hi to everybody. Hi, thanks for coming out.
That's nice.
Yeah, and I mean, I've got to high five him before because I've had like front row seats. But I haven't got to actually meet him. But
yeah. So this crash and burn of a presidential debate kind of leads us into our next story.
Yeah, it kind of does. So on September 28th, 2008. Formula One had its inaugural night race, the Singapore Grand Prix. So up until this point, all the Formula One races were during the day because it's much different to light a racetrack like NASCAR and IndyCar and stuff. They've done night races because, oval tracks, it's a lot easier, but a road course, you have sports car races like the 24 hours at Daytona, 24 hours at Le Mans that run throughout the night, but the cars have headlights anyway. So it's kind of a marquee, big event. And so Fernando Alonso wins the race. Nothing's really odd or unusual about this other than Alonso didn't have a good qualifying run. He starts towards the back end. Formula One racing there's a lot of strategy that's involved. You get into, do you start with less fuel so you can try to be lighter at the start to pass more cars, then come in, make an early pit stop and make up the time? And there's
I don't think people understand how much strategy goes into it. There's you drive the car.
Right. There's a lot of strategy in Formula One because passing is just so hard. It's not like, you see a NASCAR race or something, you see cars passing each other all the time. That's not really how Formula One works. So he makes an early pit stop, and then his teammate, Nelson Piquet Jr., crashes on the 14th lap of the race. And it brings out a safety car. It bunches everybody up. Well, he's already pitted, so now he doesn't have to pit again. And everybody else winds up pitting. He gets in front of them, winds up going on to win the race.
Yay.
Okay. Well, the following year, it comes out that Nelson Piquet says that the team told him to deliberately crash to improve Alonso's position in the race.
Oh, my.
Well, so this doesn't go over well. So they do an investigation, and they wind up fining and suspending members of the team who, some had moved on from the team. They released them, and it turns into this big thing. Sponsors aren't happy, so they lose some of their sponsorships for the car, and it just becomes this giant
Just like it implodes on them.
Yes, because team orders. See, because in Formula One you have teams. So like this is the Renault team. You have the Ferrari team. You have the Mercedes teams. You have these different teams. So in Formula One, every team has 2 cars. So you basically have a number 1 driver and like a number 2 driver. Okay. And there have been instances in the past where the number 2 driver may be told to hey, let your teammate by, he's faster, because he needs the point, and or whatever to gain. And
that there's like some favoritism.
Yes, that tends to happen. But this was a bit of a extreme example, shall we say, of team orders.
Also, how unsafe. You're like, you're going to crash just so he can get ahead of you. It's like, pardon?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the good thing is if you're going to crash and you're deliberately crashing, as crazy as that sounds, you can control how it's done.
That's true.
Versus like just a regular crash where you could take somebody else out or something. So yeah, so it becomes crazy, this huge controversy. But at the time, it seems like no big deal.
Right. That he just like, it happened and he won.
Right.
So I'm guessing that kind of maybe got people to look at these teams and look at these crashes a bit more closely in the future.
Yeah, because you'd had issues prior to that with like Ferrari having, because Michael Schumacher was the primary driver for the Ferrari team at the time, back in like the 2000s. And there were examples of where, his teammate was told to, go slower and let Schumacher by so he could get, the extra point, because it all adds up to the championship at the end of the year. And there was one race where Schumacher lifted and he let the teammate by so he could win. So Rubens Barrichello could win the race because he's like, he had the best car all day. I'm not going to take the win from him because the team told him to. So
that's cool.
You have instances where team orders become a thing, but yeah, this was a quite extreme example that did not bode well for the team.
Well, speaking of future races.
Yes.
Mike, what do you think that the world's going to be like in about 5,000 years? To put this in context, 5,000 years ago would have been about 3,000 BC. So early to middle Bronze Age. There's early empires in the ancient Near East. In ancient Egypt, it's the early dynastic period. There's about 60 million people on the planet 5,000 years ago. So 5,000 years from now, what do you think the world's going to be like? It's like a mind-boggling number to think about.
So that's a little bit of a loaded question there. I'd like to hope we eventually have our Jetsons flying cars by then.
That would be cool. My mind instantly went to on Star Wars when they're at, is it Corsica? Like the bright neon buildings and the flying cars and all that kind of technology. That's kind of where my brain went.
Yeah.
Well, that's about as much time as we have left before this time capsule from the 1938 fair in New York City is set to be open. It's buried and it's not to be open until the year 6939.
I don't think I'll be around by then.
I don't think. I mean, I hope the Earth is like the world. I hope humanity is around then, but who knows?
Depends if we can ever get COVID under control.
God, if we thought this year felt long and the last year and a half felt long, it's like 5,000 years is going to feel real long. But this time capsule project is going to be an initiative of the Westinghouse House Electric and Manufacturing Company with the aim of presenting a snapshot of the era while paying tribute to the Expo's theme. And the Expo's theme that year was the world of tomorrow. So they wanted to immortalize the 1930s with this time capsule. They create a special bullet-shaped capsule measuring 2.3 meters or 7 feet and 6.5 inches in length, with a diameter of 22 centimeters or about just over 8.5 inches. So it's airtight glass casing to ensure maximum protection of the items that were inside. And deciding on what items to go inside was, a task in of itself, other than designing this bullet-shaped thing. Because what can you stick in a space that small? Because it's fairly small, right? 7 feet by 8.5 inches. It's not very big.
Not very big.
No. So you want to know what how many items first they put in it?
Well, it depends how big the items are. I mean,
that's right.
We discussed back when we talked about Nickelodeon, about the Nickelodeon time capsule. They That was, I mean, they put, I don't know, probably 20, 30 things in there, but that was a bit bigger than, but 7 feet, that's kind of long. I'm going to say they put like 15 things in there.
They put 100 carefully chosen items.
Keyword being carefully chosen.
Yeah. And I mean, can you imagine how
there's no social distancing in that time capsule?
No. And no Tetris experts to help them, right? Because Tetris hasn't been invented yet. But they included a pack of cigarettes.
I would not smoke them. I mean, I wouldn't smoke them anyway, but I would not.
But definitely not those ones.
Year-old cigarettes.
A 35 millimeter camera, a safety razor. They put in some various children's toys. So Frisbee could be in there for all we know. Money, millions of pages of text on microfilm, seed samples from common crops such as wheat, corn, and cotton, and handwritten messages from figures such as Albert Einstein and Thomas Mann. So, can you imagine how much those handwritten notes are probably worth?
Oh, I know. Well, I'm just thinking, if this time capsule is like airtight, it's not exposed to the elements, it's not exposed to air, water, anything. I'm wondering how well they get preserved.
It's got to be pretty good.
I mean, 5,000 years is a long time, though.
But I mean, think how well preserved items were in ancient tombs that we've discovered. True. Like there's honey from Tutankhamun's site that you can eat.
Right.
Theoretically.
Yeah, honey. Really I wouldn't. Honey doesn't expire. So as long as it's well kept in like a cold, dark area, you can pretty much eat it
whenever.
Yeah.
It has doesn't it have like antibacterial properties too?
Something I'm not smart enough to know.
I'm not a scientist.
And you're not a mathematician.
I'm not a mathematician.
Interesting though, you talk about the World's Fair because coming up next week, the Expo 2020 in Dubai opens up.
Yeah. And we were supposed to have a special guest at that.
Yes,
Expo.
we were. We were, but
someone messed those plans up. That someone's name is Andy. Andy, you were supposed to be our correspondents. And how dare you come back to Canada before the expo hit in Dubai?
Right. Like we just need you to stay there like another month and a half. Yeah.
It's like, did you really need when Andy is back in Canada, which is actually wonderful. It was great to see her and give her a hug and everything. But she was saying how much she missed rain because they were actually going back to our topic of seeding tornado or hurricanes. They were seeding rain in Dubai to try and make it rain. And she really missed certain food items that you just couldn't get over there. But it's like, come on, 6 more weeks, girl.
Could have made it. Just go opening day. Be on the first plane, back on the second. You've been fine.
That's right.
But at least she got to try on her Ghostbusters.
She did get to try on her Ghostbuster suit. So that is great. Although it got left here because she's in between houses and she didn't want to lose it.
Well, at least you've kept it for this long. You can keep it for another I can keep it for a while longer.
Yeah.
There you go. We need to get her on the show though at some point here to talk about her experience in Dubai. And we can all wear our Ghostbuster suits together while we do that.
Oh, that would be so good. I like that idea.
Special thanks to our
maybe that's the one that we need to have on YouTube.
Maybe as we thank our dear friend Andy. Different Andy,
crazy cocoa butter cosplay.
Yes, for our Ghostbuster suits. So that being said, I think we put the ghosts in the ghost trap and call this one an episode, shall we?
We shall.
Do the thing.
All right. If you have any questions, concerns, queries, or freakouts, there are multiple ways for you to reach us. You can find us on YouTube. If you plug in The Time Machine with Trish and Mike, please hit that like button and subscribe and help us get an actual title on YouTube. That would be great. You can email us at thetimemachinewithtrishandmike@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram at The Time Machine with Trish and Mike. And if you go to the Anchor app, you can leave us a message on there and we'll include you in the show.
Yes. And if your name is Andy, come on and tell us about Dubai.
Yeah.
If not, we will just tell you bye. And have a great week. And we'll catch you next week right here on The Time Machine.